I was running on the treadmill and I realized if I changed my breathing mechanics, so not breath work, very, very different than breath work, but if I changed my mechanics of how I held my rib cage and how that affected the diaphragm, I could run 8 miles in 55 minutes, get off the treadmill, and not have to stretch. And so after a couple weeks of doing that, I was like, is this just me? It didn't feel like I had even run the 8 miles. I was like, wow, I feel loose.
Welcome to Salad with a Side of Fries. I'm your host, Jenn Trepeck, talking wellness and weight loss for real life. We're here to clear up the myths, misinformation, bad science, and marketing to teach you how to eat and how to cheat. Are you ready? I'm having salad with a side of fries. Hey friend, welcome back to Salad with a Side of Fries. I'm Jenn Trepeck, your host and health coach, here with you every week for wellness without the weirdness. And I do believe many of us are aware of the mind-body connection. If you're a longtime listener, we've talked about this before on many episodes. We've talked about the vagus nerve as the literal connection between the gut and the brain. We've talked about placebo and nocebo, which are evidence of the body responding based on our thoughts or our beliefs. And today, I'm really excited to dig deeper into the mind-body connection with a truly fantastic guest who can help us put this into context with many of the things that you're probably noticing every day. So if you're stressed, if you ever feel anxious, if you've ever felt a little down, if you've noticed bloating or headaches, frankly, if you're living on this planet in 2025, you want to listen in. So let me introduce you to our featured guest. She founded the PABR Institute with the mission to provide pain, stress, and anxiety relief to those who seek a naturalistic form of treatment when other treatment methods have fallen short. Her unique approach comes from her experience treating in a variety of settings and with a wide range of patient populations over the past 16 years. Her background in orthopedics, sports, geriatrics, balance disorders, nerve injuries, and most recently, chronic pain, and influences from her coursework at the Postural Restoration Institute gave her the foundation to develop this treatment method to address a wide variety of painful and restrictive conditions. Her methods have helped countless people reduce and eliminate pain, stress, anxiety, orthopedic surgeries, sleep issues, and the need for medications. She co-authored the 2 Amazon #1 best-selling books, Don't Quit, Stories of Persistence, Courage, and Faith, and Success Habits of Super Achievers, which share her journey on how and why she developed the PABR method. She also co-authored Wall Street Journal bestseller From WTF to OMG with a little LOL, Unpacking Entrepreneurs' Hidden Lessons. She's a marathoner, ultra-marathoner. She's completed an Ironman triathlon, and she photographs wildlife and landscapes all over the world. We're honored to have her here with us on Salad with a Side of Fries. I give you Dr. Amy Novotny.
Hi, Jen. Thank you for having me.
Yes.
Wonderful to be here.
Yes, I'm so glad you're here. And full, disclosure for everybody, this is not our first conversation. So Amy's podcast is called Reawaken Your Health. We did an episode together over there that aired February 24th, 2025. So everybody go over there as soon as you finish listening today and check that one out too. So Amy, I want to start with your story and kind of go from there. But one more bit of housekeeping that we have to do. We have to tell our members what they're getting this week. So members, your recipe this week, this one makes me laugh by the name of it, but this is literally the name of the recipe. It is for sexy fish. I know, right? It's swordfish. It's kind of an Italian preparation. It's a great one and literally called sexy fish. I mean, how could you go wrong, right? And then also because it's March, the 3rd month of the quarter, it's time for your quarterly live Q&A that's a one-on-one, just you and me. So if you want this recipe or a one-on-one health coaching session, be sure you're a member. Go to glow.fm/salad with a side of fries. This shows your support for this podcast, this community. You get weekly recipes, a monthly article or tool, extra discounts from me and our partners, plus access to live Q&A sessions. It's a total deal. I say it all the time. It's a steal when you take advantage of the full offerings because you save far more than that $10 cost. Plus, it supports this podcast and this community because I love nothing more than doing this with you every week. So all you have to do is go to glow.fm/salad with a side of fries or click the link in the episode notes because that's a lot easier. Once you're there, you click the little I agree button and then support now. Follow the prompts to enter your email and payment info. Click subscribe. And you're all set. You're going to get this week's recipe for sexy fish and details to book your quarterly live one-on-one health coaching session, just you and me. Okay, Amy, I'd love for you to share your story because you're a doctor of physical therapy.
Yes.
Then you had like this realization of what's external versus internal. Will you share all that? Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. So I went through the whole physical therapy route, started my career that way, worked in an sports and orthopedics clinic, doing well. And at the same time, I started running marathons. And I realized I was pretty good at them, not anywhere professionally, but for a lay person, I was pretty good at them. And I was just short of qualifying for the Boston Marathon. So I started trying to run faster and faster. And I had the typical aches and pains, even though I was doing everything perfect in terms of the physical therapy, personal training world. Stretching, foam rolling, scraping, strengthening, agility training, balance training, you name it, I did it all. And I was running on the treadmill and I realized if I changed my breathing mechanics, so not breath work, very, very different than breath work, but if I changed my mechanics of how I held my rib cage and how that affected the diaphragm, I could run 8 miles in 55 minutes, get off the treadmill, and not have to stretch. It didn't feel like I had even run the 8 miles. I was like, wow, I feel loose. I don't feel like I just ran hard. I don't feel like I was tight. And so after a couple weeks of doing that, I was like, is this just me? Does everyone else know this? Or am I stumbling on something new? And so I asked other colleagues and they had no clue what I was talking about. And so I realized, okay, I was doing something different. And the next marathon I ran, I blew through the qualifying marks for Boston. I didn't change any other training, just my breathing mechanics and how I held my rib cage position. And what I realized, and I started studying and diving into it, is it was changing how my fight or flight nervous system was being active while I was running. So if I changed my rib cage and got out of a typical runner's appearance with the chest out, shoulders back, suck up the gut, if I got out of that, all of a sudden my body just relaxed. So I was tapping into the sympathetic and parasympathetic nerve system, and I was going away from sympathetic into parasympathetic. So I was getting into rest and relaxation while I was running fast. And so when I did that and my breathing mechanics changed, all of a sudden I could calm myself down while running fast and having a fast turnover of my legs. And it didn't take as much effort. And my body didn't tighten up like it used to. And I stopped having to foam roll, to scrape, and doing all these things that stop stretching. I stopped doing all these things that I said you had to do if you wanted to run pain-free. And I took that, and so I was able to run marathons pain-free and 50-milers pain-free. And so I just kept taking it and pushing it. My whole idea of physical rehabilitation and health changed after that because I realized so much of what I taught people as a physical therapist and what I heard personal trainers do and what I heard wellness coaches do and everyone do is talk about this perfect posture, a military Superman posture. And what it was doing was putting people in a state where their fight or flight nervous system kicked in to cause muscles to contract without their awareness. And it made them tight. And so I realized what I was doing as a physical therapist is I was trying to stretch people and do things to them externally. But that wasn't really the best way that I wanted to approach health for people because I wanted to change them internally and get them to feel these changes and have them own the changes without me touching them, without me doing something to them. Because if I could get you, Jen, to do something different with your body, you've sensed and felt it, you own it. You don't need me and I don't have to do anything to you. You can apply it anytime you want to. And so long story short, that's how I changed.
I love it. And it's so fascinating. I'm so excited to dig deeper into this. Let's make sure everyone's on the same page. Will you give kind of an overview of the autonomic nervous system and then, sympathetic and parasympathetic?
Absolutely. So the autonomic nervous system helps our body run in the background. It runs our organs, heart rate, blood pressure. It influences a lot of how we exist. There's three main nervous systems within the autonomic nervous system. You have the enteric nervous system, which is your gut and digestion, which you cover and you handle very well. Then you have the parasympathetic nervous system, which is rest, relaxation, digest, repose. And then you have sympathetic nervous system, which is fight, flight, freeze, and fawn, which is people pleasing. So if you go about your day and you kind of just check in with yourself, you can kind of get a sense. Am I really stressed out? Well, that means you're more in a sympathetic state. And then maybe, let's say at the end of the day, you're just relaxing, you're chill. Maybe you've meditated. Maybe you've had a nice dinner and you're just sitting reading a book and you're very peaceful. That's parasympathetic. Now, ideally, we want to spend as much time as possible in parasympathetic. And when needed, go into that sympathetic fight, flight, freeze, fawn mode. And I just use fight or flight as for short, but I do include the freeze and fawn in that as well.
I think there's a really interesting piece of what you're sharing there that a lot of people ignore. And that is, well, I guess there's two things. One is the fawn piece, that our stress response doesn't look like textbook always what we were taught before. And the second piece is the connection to, the enteric nervous system, our gut health. And so I know you received a referral from, for a client who is having gut health issues. Will you share a little bit about that?
Yeah. So back in, I believe it was 2019. So this person just had indigestion. And that was, and a psychiatrist had sent this person to me for indigestion and stomach issues. And she had a lot of trauma in her past, a lot of things that were done to her that a normal human being would never even dream of happening to them. And some of it was buried and she wasn't even aware of it until she started working with a psychiatrist and a psychologist to help figure out what was going on with her body. And so while she was going through some mental training and learning how to move through her past and go through that and heal, her physical body wasn't allowing that process to happen. There was a stop to it. And so it showed up for her as indigestion and gut issues. And so we started working on getting her body to relax. And I say the word relax, and it's so much more than relax. It's her muscles were in a guarded pattern of activation. They were contracting without her awareness. She didn't realize that she had her belly so tight. I mean, it was like iron. And so we had to work on getting her to recognize that, but also change how she held her ribcage position. So we can all imagine sucking our gut up and in to make us look like we have a flat belly. But now add in an emotional component on top of that. Now her stomach is really hard and she holds it that way all the time, or I should say her abdominal muscles are really hard. And she holds it that way all the time. So that blocks her digestive tract from being able to do peristalsis. So our digestive tract, we know, needs to be able to shrink and contract and expand. And we have all these little hair cells to allow nutrient absorption, which I'm sure your listeners know all about. But that process, it needs space. And if you're sucking your gut up and in all the time, it's cramping on all the space that's needed. And your stomach doesn't have that space. Your small intestines doesn't have the space. And neither does your large intestines. And peristalsis requires that you to have some parasympathetic activity of rest and relaxation for us to be able to push food down that track. So she had that issue. So we got her to release the belly. Her ribcage dropped down. Her breathing mechanics changed. Her ability to relax her back muscles, which was stimulating the fight or flight nervous system, those calmed down. And she went from not leaving her house, drinking gallons of water every hour or every day, and not participating in life, to climbing the tallest mountain in Arizona, which is still a mountain that's 12,600 feet, to running triathlons, to starting a new business. She's blossomed. And it all started with her physical body was so restricted and it showed up as gut issues.
I have so many questions. I'm like, I want to pause because like my brain, pause my brain, not you. What is the connection between that muscle contraction and the nervous system? Is it just that contraction says we're in use and therefore, yeah, I'll let you answer instead of me guessing.
Yeah, sure. So we have like a voluntary ability to contract our muscles. So if I want to lift up a jug of water, I just put it in my hand and lift it up, and my biceps contracts, and I bring it close to my face and I can drink. So that's voluntary. There's no emotion behind it, hopefully. Like I'm thirsty, drink. Yay. So the problem is when there's an emotional component to it and your muscles contract in regards to that emotion. That can happen with our awareness. If this house was burning right now, I will contract my body and I will get out there fast as possible. I know that's happening. But a lot of times that's not a typical situation. It's not common. What's typical is we have a stressor. We're driving down the road and I realize that I forgot something at home. Now I'm going to be late to that meeting, so I have to turn around and get it back. So when that happened and that stressor showed up, my muscles in my body started to contract. I'm worried I'm going to be late. I'm worried about the traffic. I'm worried about disappointing the person I was meeting. So all of that, my body starts to tense up. My back tenses up. Maybe my shoulders tense up as I hold onto the steering wheel as I get back. So that muscle contraction, I'm not thinking about that. I'm not paying attention to that because I'm worried about the road and getting whatever I forgot. So those muscles contract without my awareness. Now I get to the meeting, there's still some tension. So all that time, that hour extra of time, I emotionally contracted my muscles. Let's say I go through the meeting, everything's fine. If I don't pause and say, okay, muscles, let's let go, and I recognize that, and I get my rib cage back down, my belly spills out, my breathing mechanics back to normal. If I don't do that, my muscles stay in that guarded, contracted state. That's an emotional nervous system contraction. It's not a voluntarily, hey, I need to pick something up type of contraction. That's the type of contraction gets people into chronic pain and gets people when they're older to say, I have back pain, hip pain, knee pain because I'm old. It's not because of old. It's because the stress tension added up and those muscles contracted and pulled your bones and joints out of position. And you don't know how to reverse that. That's key. People don't know how to reverse it. And so the nervous system is ramped up because of additive years. It's not that your body is just old.
I am feeling everyone like me who is over 40. Literally, I have to tell you the story. I was doing laundry, taking things, that didn't go in the dryer and hanging them on, a drying rack in flat shoes, standing on both feet, flat-footed. I don't know what I did. All of a sudden, my ankle tweaked. Literally, I didn't even, it ended up resolving in a day or two, but it's one of those things of that happened and everyone's like, welcome to your 40s, And so that's what's going through my mind as you're saying all this is it's not because we're old,
No.
At the same time, the other thing I can hear people say is when somebody is annoyed or frustrated and somebody else says to them, right? It's the most annoying thing someone can say to you, right? When you say relax, what do you mean versus what people hear when they hear the word relax?
Right. So I will never tell someone to relax. That's the first thing is most people, we have forgotten how to relax because we've trained ourselves how to hold our body in a position that it's not allowed to relax. So I will say that obviously when someone says relax, they have good intention. But my words back are, I'm not in the position to relax. Or I've trained myself out of relaxing because what happens is when we have a stress trigger, our breastbone, that bone in the middle of your chest, it lifts up and out. That's a normal human response. It lifts up and out to prepare your body physically to handle the stressor or danger. So if you have any stress, which we all have stress, your body is now physically in a position to not relax. So you can't just relax. That's not possible. So what I mean is we have to get you to learn how to feel the breastbone going in on your exhalation, and then train it to stay in on the inhalation. So your whole breathing mechanics process, inhalation and exhalation, are both relaxing your body. And so when you exhale, and initially you have to work on exhalation, but when you exhale and your breastbone goes in, you can feel muscles stop contracting. And you can just be sitting there and you blow out and the breastbone goes in, your belly spills out, and you feel, oh, I just felt my upper trap muscles relax, or I felt my back relax. And basically you're feeling your body get into the correct position so the muscles release their contraction. That's relaxing. But that's not, I hear words and poof.
Right.
I'm done. That's not a possibility. You have to physically train your body how to get in the correct position again.
Okay, so I want to shift into all of these really tangible, actionable pieces of posture, of breathing mechanics, and some of those things. Let's pause here to highlight our partner for this episode. Big thanks to Lumiere de Vie Skincare for supporting Salad with a Side of Fries. Lumiere de Vie Skincare was founded by Amber Ridinger McLaughlin in response to her own experience of mere marginal results from countless costly creams. She realized the revitalization of her youthful skin could only occur if she developed products herself. Working closely with beauty scientists and exploring the most advanced ingredients derived from the earth and sea, Amber created Lumiere de Vie, the next generation of skincare. The extensive line of luxury skincare products is designed to address all skin types and concerns, with the highest quality natural ingredients and powerful formulas that help heal, soothe, moisturize, and protect. Lumiere de Vie acts as first aid for your skin. The result is rejuvenated, luminous, beautiful-looking skin. So we're talking about the nervous system. I will say one way that I sort of calm myself is with my skincare routine. Every morning and every night, Lumiere de Vie is a majority of those products. And if you're married to your skincare, great. Don't worry about it. Try the Lumiere de Vie anti-aging biocellulose mask. It reminds me of the ones that we're seeing all over the internet, giving you like that glass skin right after you take it off. This one is just 5 masks in a pack for $48, and that's before your 10% off and free shipping because you're a Salad with a Side of Fries listener. So simply text the word SKIN, SKIN, to 844-947-4846. You'll receive the link and coupon code right to your phone. Again, simply text the word SKIN, SKIN, to 844-947-4846 to try Lumiere de Vie Skincare at 10% off and free shipping. This is a toll-free number. Standard text and data rates may apply. Okay, Amy, you've talked about gut health, right? Our indigestion. You've talked about the stress response in our nervous system, how we're breathing, and posture. Walk us through, like you talked about the breastbone. What are some of the things that we really want to start to focus on to be aware and move in the direction of like remedying this?
Right. So I usually start people with sitting, just because when you sit, we've taken sitting to become an exercise instead of what it's designed to be, which is a position of relaxation. So I say, let's get your sitting back into a relaxation. Now, if you're sitting for 10 hours a day, maybe you want part of your sitting time to be a little bit exercise oriented. But for the most part, people need to learn how to relax when they sit. So when you're sitting in a chair, sit all the way back.
I'm doing this as we're talking. Okay, hold on.
Yeah. A lot of people sit at the front of their chair. So I said, sit all the way back. Let your low back relax and tuck your tailbone under. So it's going to feel like you're slouching a little bit. If you have a huge pillow behind you for lumbar support and you're not having back pain, try to take that away or reduce it so that you can start to get your back muscles to let go a little bit. You want your feet flat on the ground or a stool or step stool or something like that. And the height of your knees need to be at the height of your hip crease or slightly higher. Most chairs put it so that people's knees are below their hip crease. And what that does is that causes you to use your back muscles and tips your pelvis forward, which ramps up your nervous system. So most people I work with, I say, we have to get some books under your feet, a step stool, something, lower your chair if you can, but then, you might have to lower your desk height. So there's a little bit you have to look at. So those are the first things is let's get your body in a position to allow you to relax. Then when you're sitting there, you can put your hands on your lower front ribs. And most people, if they feel the lower front ribs and then just drop down, they feel a drop off. Now, ideally, we don't want to feel that drop off. if you feel that drop off, you know that your ribs have flared up and out. So your rib cage, which should be a cylinder and on like a stable base type of, if you look at any type of can, we've taken a rib cage and we've lifted up and tilted it on an edge. That makes it very unstable. So then you have to start to guard everything in your torso, which is going to make it hard for you to relax. So ideally, we want to get you over time to feel those front lower ribs drop down and become flush with the side abdominal muscles. Now, you can still have this no matter how much belly fat you have. You can still feel if the ribs start to go flush. When they start to go flush, your body's now in a breathing pattern that's relaxation. So these are some things that you can look for. Over time, as you're learning this process and learning to breathe, you'll start to feel how your breastbone goes in, you'll feel your ribs go flush, and you'll start to feel how I can relax my back. I can feel my chest go in, and I can feel this wave of just relaxation, and it starts to calm your whole body. And then things that are mental and emotional stressors are not perceived as great of danger, and people's emotional reactivity starts to decrease. And the other thing is people start to realize that they don't need to hold their breath. They don't need to breathe shallow. So there's a lot of little pieces. And I was just showing you the very get-go of how I start to work with people. And those are some of the things that you can start to do and just kind of check on yourself.
And so with sort of that posture, right? And then what you were noticing is during your activity, and a lot of our listeners are super active, even if they're not runners, right? We're all very aware of our activity, right? At whatever level we're at. What are some of the things that we want to think about or start to notice in our posture while we're doing movement, especially?
So things that you want to notice in your posture, well, how much do your back muscles do the work? And this is a big one for anyone who is active. Most people don't realize that they overuse the muscles along the spine when they reach, when they lift up their knee, when they're running, when they're squatting, when they're bending, when they're twisting. And that sounds funny, and when I'll work with bodyweight builders or weightlifters, and I'll say, okay, we're going to drop your weight in half. And they all think, yeah, whatever, no way. But once I get them to get their rib cage down and stop overusing their back muscles, and then they lift a weight that's half of what they used to do, and they realize how hard that is, the shock on their face, and it's every time. It is without failure. They're like, okay. And for the first part of it, they won't be able to disengage the back, especially someone who does weightlifting, especially someone who is a profound athlete, because all of our athletic activities, we've been trained to use our back more so. Runners, swimmers, martial arts, football players, soccer players, all these people I've worked with, basketball players, they all are dominant in their back. And they don't know how to turn it off and truly use their arms and legs separately from the back. And so I say that is the biggest thing you want to start to get a handle on is, can you sense your back when you're walking? Can you sense it when you're running? And then once you can sense it, can you shift so you use your body differently so you don't sense those? That's the biggest tip I would say going forward.
And such a practice. Like, as you said, the first time you start to do it, it's hard.
It's very, very hard. And it might take you a while to figure out how to do it. And you might need help from me or someone else. You might need help to figure out how to get out of that pattern. It's so worth it, though. It's so rewarding once you can change.
Yeah, it's interesting. It reminds me, I had a Pilates instructor years ago who always talked about like where the move is initiating from, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, so I feel like there are certain techniques that can help us sort of hone that. It's interoception, right? Whatever, Yeah.
Yeah. Inside.
Yeah. And so breathing mechanics, you talked about the breastbone, and then is it sort of that diaphragmatic breathing that we're looking for? Yeah.
Yes. Let me go through that a little bit. And I say this in all compassion and love for anyone who's teaching belly breathing, but this is not belly breathing. So belly breathing, when you inhale and you push your belly out, that's not diaphragmatic breathing. That's abdominal distension. So you're just pushing your belly out. Now, your diaphragm, if you imagine it's a grain silo, a grain silo has walls to it to hold the dough. Our diaphragm is similarly structured like that. So the walls of the diaphragm need to create a strong base for this dome to be able to drop down so that you can pull air in. If the walls of the diaphragm are not strong or stable, then it's harder for the dome to really come down. So if you imagine your rib cage is flared up and out because you're sucking your gut up and in, that means the walls of the diaphragm are flared out. That means that grain silo is now flattened out. So it's going to be hard to hold up this dome and have the dome go up and down. So if you flare your ribs out because you're pushing your belly out, now you're actually destabilizing the diaphragm. So instead, we want the rib cage to drop down and in. That's why I was talking about we want that rib flare to drop down and in to become flush with the side abdominals, because that provides a wall of support for the diaphragm walls. Now you have this strong cylinder of support for this dome to go up and down. And that is what stimulates the vagus nerve to calm you down, to help you digest, to help you sleep, to help you relax. Because now you're truly accessing the diaphragm in an efficient, strong, effective way. The other way, yes, obviously you're still breathing, but it's not providing as many benefits as what we're looking for.
I love it. And when we last spoke, you also mentioned sort of water and chewing and some other pieces for us to think about. If you want to speak to those or any others that you think, everybody should really know here.
Yes. So if you're chewing rapidly, or you're chewing and swallowing, so that whole process will, you probably have talked about or at least mentioned, affects your TMJ joint. So there's a lot of nerves that go right into our TMJ area, and that recruits other fight or flight muscles. So in our body, we have kind of muscles that are typically associated with the fight or flight nervous system that ramp us up. Our jaw muscles, masseters, are really involved in that process. The other aspect too is when I was touching on peristalsis. If you're chewing hard or fast and just swallowing one after another, things get built up because you're not getting the peristaltic wave through your esophagus. We want to get that wave and get that process to help you so you can get your nutrient absorption. The water portion too helps with that, because how hydrated you are can also set off the nervous system into a fight or flight status or a parasympathetic status. So all of it comes into play. So how you eat, what you eat, and how your body responds to what you eat, and your hydration status all affect that autonomic nervous system and play into this physical stimulation of fight or flight or physical stimulation of parasympathetic relaxation.
I think it's so fascinating. And it's making me think too, as we were talking about, can you tell, like we were talking about, someone's posture and then these digestive issues, can you even tell what their digestive issue is? Or is there any connection between what the digestive issue is for like bloating, constipation, diarrhea, whatever, based on how they're holding themselves? Or sort of is any...
Yeah, you can't really tell based on how they're holding themselves. I can watch someone and see how they're positioned, and I can guess they likely have a digestive issue. So because of how they're holding themselves, I know they could be constipated because of how the back is curved, how the rib cage is lifted up. But it can go the other way too, just because I don't know how well they're hydrating. That part,
right?
It's hard to tell if they're going to be more diarrhea oriented or constipated oriented. I'll say most of the people that I've seen are more the constipated oriented, have IBS issues, those types of things.
Yeah. And those are, as we know, also so connected to trauma, in our history. So it all comes together. It's all connected.
Yes.
Anything we didn't mention or anything we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about?
I think we covered a lot. I would just say, if you have different pains, whether they're digestive or more musculoskeletal pain, joints, and if someone tells you your pain is all arthritis, just pause and rethink. And think about, what if you calm your nervous system down? It releases those muscles, which release the abnormal hold on your bones and joints, and then you get relief. Just what if, especially if you're going to have surgery. just pause and just rethink that for a little bit and experiment.
I love that. I'm such a big fan of also like play with it, see what happens, because also what do we have to lose? If nothing else, we're going to end up where we are right now.
Exactly. And you might learn a little bit about your body along the way.
All right, it's time for our rapid fire off-topic questions. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
What's the best thing you've done for your health this week? And what's the naughtiest thing you've done related to your health this week? Not that anything's really naughty, but balance,
Best thing is, I would say a couple days ago, I really got into my water regimen and upped it a little bit. So that was the best thing. Worst thing is I pigged out on some dates covered in coconut.
Sounds delicious.
It was fabulous.
All right, if you weren't a doctor, what would you do?
Be a wildlife photographer traveling around the world.
Yeah. Favorite book on any topic other than your area of expertise, or you could give us a fiction book.
I would say Rich Dad, Poor Dad, because it helped me change my life.
Great book.
Yes.
If you could cure one ailment, disease, or sickness, what would it be?
That's a good one. Right now, I'd probably say COVID.
Yeah. If you were a superhero, what would be your superpower?
Oh, being invisible.
Interesting. All right. What's your biggest pet peeve?
I would say people making excuses.
That's a good one. All right. Last one. In your opinion, what's the next frontier in wellness?
Next frontier in wellness is just, I would say, looking within and healing without all the medications. I know people are going into no alcohol. That's a big thing right now, which I applaud. I think that's amazing. But I think there's going to start to be more pushback on medications.
Yeah. Dr. Amy Novotny, thank you so much for being here. Tell everybody how to connect with you, where to learn more. Do you work with people remotely? All the stuff.
Absolutely. So the easiest way to learn more is go to the website, PABRinstitute.com. P as in pain, A as in awareness, B as in breathing, R as in relief, institute.com. I only work with people remotely. So I work with people all over the world right now. It's one-on-one. And you can go on most social media, most of the big ones I'm on, and I do answer. And I do free 15-minute consults if that you decide that that's something you want more questions or want more answers, please reach out.
Excellent. Thank you again. Just truly appreciate your time and your insights and everything you're doing. So thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. All right, friends. On Friday, in this week's Nutrition Nugget bonus episode, we're talking about black rice. Have you had it? I see it in restaurants, and for some reason, people don't often have it at home. But I think it's delicious. It offers a host of nutrients that you probably wouldn't expect. So we're going to get into it on Friday in this week's Nutrition Nugget bonus episode. So be sure wherever you're listening, click the plus sign or the follow button, and then your app will alert you when it goes live. And friends, if you are not already, join our membership by going to glow.fm/salad with a side of fries. This shows your support for this podcast, this community, and most importantly, it supports your health. You'll get this week's recipe for sexy fish. I have to say it that way. Sexy fish, and your quarterly live Q&A that's a one-on-one health coaching session for you. So until next week, remember, your mind and body are connected. So perhaps some of the physical challenges you notice are actually stemming from your nervous system, which means you might want to sit up a little straighter and relax. Relax the diaphragm, relax the pelvis, breathe a little deeper, and send some safety signals to your system. Well, friends, that's it for today's episode of Salad with a Side of Fries. Congratulations for making yourself and your health a priority. Thanks so much for joining us. Be sure to click subscribe or follow on your favorite podcast platform, share us with a friend, and we'll be back next week. Always remember, you deserve it and you are worth it. Happy healthy.